Starlight Florist is my debut full-length album, releasing everywhere on December 16th, 2022. It's the beginning of my fantasy lo-fi world, which means that every song exists in the same place and adds to its lore. So, through bits of dialogue and poems scattered across the album, you get to learn more about the characters, locations, and events which make up the world. Think of it like a cross between a book and a concept album. The music videos build up the lore too, as they depict the settings of the songs with looping animations hand-drawn by me. I also made unique album artwork for each of the titled songs, so all told, that makes for 9 different album covers in addition to the main cover, 3 music videos in addition to the main animation, and a total of 17 tracks, clocking in at 45 minutes in length. Starlight Florist has been a true labor of love, a passion project, and it has taken 2 years of hard work and learning to get to this point. I wrote, recorded, mixed, and mastered the songs, as well as drawing and animating all the artwork and music videos. I'm so excited to finally share this project with everyone. And as always, you can find me, SJR Caldwell, wherever you get your music. So, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Instagram, and more. Thanks for watching. This is the making of Starlight Florist. Okay, with the introduction finished, let's take a closer look. A deep dive, if you will, into my fantasy lo-fi concept album. If you're thinking that's a lot of words, don't worry, I'm about to unpack that. First off, lo-fi is a pretty laid-back, instrumental hip-hop genre that famously works well in the background. But from the moment I first heard it, which was probably around 2019 or so, I couldn't help but imagine combining it with my other musical tastes. What if it had a full grand orchestra, like in a fantasy or video game soundtrack? And what if it also had the dark, ambient, and dreamy electronics found in genres like downtempo, shoegaze, dream pop, and hauntology? Basically, I dreamed of combining these influences into one concept album. Think Howard Shore's The Lord of the Rings, Jesper Kid's Assassin's Creed, and bands like Boards of Canada, Eels, and Slowdive all combined together. It occurred to me that lo-fi could actually be a platform for all of these ideas. Let me explain. Usually, lo-fi samples things like old jazz recordings, but what if I wrote my own orchestra pieces and then sampled those? And what if the tracks also evolved and developed in intensity like some of my favorite bands? The missing piece that tied all of this together for me was actually not a musical influence, but fantasy novels. See, I love to read, and the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft has been a recent and especially inspiring discovery of mine. If you don't know about him, Lovecraft created a loosely connected universe through countless short stories, the Cthulhu mythos as it's called, and only filled in details as needed, letting readers imagine the rest. The freedom that this approach allows is really inviting to me, because no matter how much I love The Lord of the Rings, it is seriously a bit daunting to set things in stone. Now, how does all this connect to lo-fi, you may be wondering? Lo-fi commonly features voice excerpts, conversations, and ambient noises found in old movies and the real world. But what if I wrote poems and stories all related to a fictional universe, and then recorded excerpts of those instead? Well, as you might imagine, I did just that. I made poems and stories, wrote orchestra soundtracks, and even took my microphones around to record ambient noises. Among the sounds you'll hear in Starlight Florist are the forests and rain around our house in Gainesville, Florida. It rains a lot here, so there were plenty of opportunities to record rain. And as you can see from this video I took of the backyard, we live in a super dense forest. There's tons of animals and birds, and even a group of armadillos comes through sometimes, so there's plenty of interesting sounds. You'll also hear an audience chatting before a concert, and a bike ride I took down a forest trail, which was actually very difficult to record properly because I kept getting droning sounds from the tires. I ended up having to delicately hold the microphone in one hand while steering with the other, and you can see from this video I took that the trail is fairly curvy, which definitely didn't help. After many failed attempts, I got one good recording, but it was a fun challenge and I'm glad I did it. I also recorded countless sounds from around the house, like glassware and the kitchen table, the garage door, and more. All of these recorded sounds, plus the orchestra soundtracks and poems, were then combined together using the language of lo-fi beats. I wrote and recorded all the parts myself in my little home recording studio. So many hours at this desk, like so many. Mostly this meant I was inputting the parts with my piano or MIDI controller, but at various points I also played my guitar, ukulele, saxophone, kalimba, and melodica. I'm not super great at these instruments, but I can make do. I also designed many synthesized sounds, and it was a lot of fun, because it felt like building instruments from scratch and then testing them out. Like, for example, the kitchen table I mentioned earlier, it was layered into the synthesized parts of the kick drum sound in order to make something really unique. Here, have a listen. Basically, my hope was that by making my own sounds and not using any outside loops or samples, and of course writing the music myself, that the album would feel like an actual product of my fantasy world. So, with all the writing and recording behind me, I mixed and mastered the tracks, and the music was done. It was no small feat, and I could have called it a day. But when I thought about the album artwork and music videos, I simply could not resist the tempting opportunity to depict my fantasy world. I decided to draw and animate everything myself, since I'd already been envisioning it while writing the poems and songs. But I didn't know how to animate before this, and I've never had formal drawing lessons, so it's been a huge learning process to say the least. But I'm really proud of how it turned out. Now that we've gone through the fantasy lo-fi concept album part of this, let's dive into the music itself and see what the album has to offer. It's divided down the middle by the interlude. And on each half, there are 4 titled tracks. If this was on vinyl, think of it like a side A and side B. So the front half includes Adrift the Sea of Florid Visions, The Daydream Dispatches, A Wondrous Theft, and The Veil of Forgotten Dreams. back half includes O Moonless Rain and Sodden Night. Echoes of Hanging Starlight. Staring into Space.exe. And here's to hoping warm summer drives. There are 3 singles, each with their own music video. The Daydream Dispatches, which shows the ferryman and a little dragon hard at work on the newspaper. The Veil of Forgotten Dreams, which shows that same ferryman now rowing across a marsh with a sea serpent and some will-o-wisps in tow. And finally, Echoes of Hanging Starlight, which shows the cluttered and whimsical desk of the ferryman, complete with a little worm, spider, and butterfly. For all the other songs, I made a single animation related to the main album cover, but I'll go into detail on that in just a bit. Returning back to the track listing, you'll notice that between each of the titled songs are short dream tracks which link the whole album together. Just like something that happens during the day might be recalled and distorted while sleeping, the dream tracks are like hazy and mutated memories of the titled tracks. They challenge the idea that there's only one definitive version of a song. We are so accustomed to hearing acoustic versions, live versions, and remixes of songs all presented as variations on one original recording. My hope is that listening to the full album is like looking at the sky reflected in a still lake. Both images can seem true, and neither can be determined the original. And speaking of reflections, the album is roughly organized around this metaphor, with the interlude acting as a sort of mirror. For example, Adrift the Sea of Florid Visions is reflected onto the back half of the album, corresponding to Dream 9. And this is also true in the opposite direction. Echoes of Hanging Starlight reflects onto the front half, corresponding to Dream 10. Finding these connections across the dividing line of the interlude creates a sense of discovery, so I'll let you figure out the rest. And in case you're wondering about the numbering of the dream tracks, they refer to the order that I wrote them in, so it's sort of like an inside code just for me, but now I've told you about it, so it's also for you too. Now that we've gone through the music, the last thing I want to talk about is the album artwork. Here's the cover art for Starlight Florist. I've packed a fair number of details into it, so I'm going to zoom in and describe how it all relates together. Across the bottom is a series of small icons which mimic the feeling of a hidden code. It's also like a secret legend in a map or journal. It creates a feeling of discovery or adventure. To the side is a linear arrangement of blocks, which actually says my name in a computer-based font. In the very corner is a color gradient, like is commonly found in newspapers. Here, it refers to the Daydream Dispatches, which is the fictional newspaper in my fantasy world, and also one of the tracks on the album. So together, the bottom presents 3 codes: a code for people, a code for computers, and a code for printers. Why so many codes, you may ask? Well, in general, codes or symbols refer to something which they do not literally depict, so they're kind of like a middleman or a layer coming between things. The concept of layered, lost, or altered meaning is one of the main themes of the album, which will keep returning, not just on the cover, but in the music too. Also, there's another type of symbol just above the bottom row, my logo, which combines the letters S, J, and R. In the main image, the florist shop can be seen on the right, while a staircase ascends on the left, leading into a shadowy doorway with a sign that reads, "The White Rabbit." Further into frame, amongst the flowers and various shops, is an empty chair, which welcomes the listener to sit and enjoy the view. Above the awning and string of lights are some light leaks from a camera lens, which spill into a starry sky. Like I mentioned earlier, I used this image as the basis for the album's main animation, but I used it in 2 different ways. For all the titled tracks without a music video, the view is grounded at street level. The string of lights flickers on and off, while the butterfly and will-o-wisps make appearances, and for some songs it even rains. Now, for all the dream tracks, the view is, fittingly enough, elevated toward the sky. I had fun drawing in shooting stars, so there's always a little something to look at. I want to point out quickly that this animation has a sibling, so to speak. If you've been following my Instagram or other short form videos, you'll recognize this scene that I made, which initially looks quite different. But if you look closely, you'll notice that the signs read Starlight Florist, The White Rabbit, and The Daydream Dispatches. Even though the appearance and position of the buildings seems pretty different, I wanted to imply that these 2 animations are actually of the same place. I was inspired by the French Impressionists, who would paint the same object from different angles or at different times of day, but I added more of a surreal element to it. Maybe it's just a question of perspective, or perhaps your memory is a little off, but then again, what if the appearance of the buildings is constantly shifting like water? In any case, I'm actually currently working on building this animation outwards so that I can use it in horizontal formats as well. Returning back to the album artwork, you can see over on the upper left that there's a small frame which shows a glitchy and heavily distorted version of the main image. This is a metaphor for the structure of the album itself, which features titled and dream versions of each song. If the main image is like a titled song, then this small image is its dream version. Below it, the phases of the moon can be seen, reinforcing that feeling of nighttime. The use of a pixelated font here evokes the era of retro video games, but also implies the limitations of technology. Finally, 2 pieces of tape secure the image as if they are photographs in a scrapbook. Overall, there is a sense that this album artwork is an imperfect physical object. We aren't just looking at the scene of a village, we are looking at the photograph of that scene, which has defects like film grain and light leaks. The photographs are taped down hastily and outlined in a border with a rough piece of chalk. The smaller photograph of the scene is glitched and placed somewhat over top the original. Various codes and symbols fill the margins. The sense of lost or altered meaning, layered also with the defects of obsolete technology in a nighttime setting, creates a dreamlike quality where everything is distant and removed from reality. And there you have it, the complete rundown on my full-length debut album, Starlight Florist. It releases everywhere on December 16th, 2022, so you can listen to it on all major music streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, as well as catching the music videos on YouTube and staying up to date with the things I do on Instagram. Links are in the description. I'll be posting a video that includes all the animations and music for the whole album in one place, so please be sure to check that out. I'm so excited to share Starlight Florist and its 45 minutes of content, of music, stories, artwork. This has been a huge journey for me, and I couldn't have done it without my friends and family. So, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.